For the longest time, you saw a lot of depression with people. And like, for example, I was up at Weber State the other day talking to them, and they told me that they had, when they did the research on their students about 5 years ago, that many of their students were reporting large results with depression. Well, in the last little while, they've seen that it's changed over to anxiety. And that's actually a pretty common thing. Anxiety and depression, I call them, they're best friends. They kind of come in a package deal. Anxiety, as you're going to learn when I speak to you, anxiety is always going to influence us to avoid. And so whenever we begin avoiding too much, as you can imagine, we can become depressed. And so they definitely go back and forth. But I would say today, more than ever, anxiety is bigger in a way that it's there are more avenues for all of us to avoid our life, even in small incremental ways during the day. And so that's definitely increasing the anxiety around the world. I mean, our phones, our technology, you name it, it's so much easier just to check out and to not really engage in our life. Whereas I think before it was more of a cultural thing that you just didn't disengage as much, but now it's definitely more accepted. I don't know the numbers on it. I would say our youth are experiencing anxiety at pretty high levels, but I think I see a lot of fear-based parenting as well, which I would consider anxiety just as much as I would consider our youth and our young people having anxiety. Anxiety is an interesting thing. That's what I'm excited about speaking for, is to make it more detailed and more understandable. Anxiety is such a large word. It's such this umbrella word that there are details to anxiety that people need to understand, such as perfectionism, or this is what I see in our young people is achievement addiction, where their worth depends on what they produce, what their talents are, what their grades are. That's anxiety at its root, real core, and that's a lot of what I'm going to get into. So honestly, the answer to that question, I think, is no. There isn't a specific age or demographic that I see. It's we all have fear, and if we're not careful with it, then it can start showing itself in anxiety. So. With the right help, you can absolutely manage it. I don't even use that word. I believe powerfully in curing it, and it's a strong word that some people, and even some therapists could say, like, how could you say that? And people that have battled it for a long time, they could even question, like, what do you mean cure it? But I believe it is in our thoughts. It's in the way we think. It's also in the way we believe about ourselves. And so one of the key elements of cure, to change, is to get into what's actually inside of you, not just this outward anxiety. And when you start facing those fears, I call that the Voldemort principle of, you gotta look him in the face, you gotta look at the monster right in the face, and when you do that, you realize that it's not as scary as you thought, and that's when you really start curing your fear, move on in your life. I want to define it extremely well. I want to take it deeper into the understanding of anybody who's listening, that they will be able to check in with themselves about what are some of the core beliefs they might have that are creating anxiety. Again, one thing you'll hear me say over and over, anxiety is not the problem, it's the symptom, it's the throw up. And so when we start playing in throw up, life never really gets that fun. And so we got to go deeper to what's actually the root cause in this, which is how we believe about ourselves. And a lot of times those are very blind to us. We don't see them, even though, and we could have lived our life for a long time, and we just don't see that we're actually functioning from a fear-based place. And so I want to extract that and maybe do some really fun things facing those, and talking about it, and honestly getting into some solutions as what we do once we know where we're coming from. And so what we all can do for anyone is be a way better listener. And which means not just agreeing with everything that they're saying, but actually listening for their emotions, listening for the content of what they're saying. Finding truth in something that they're saying is a really difficult thing sometimes when someone's saying something to you that you really disagree with, or it really scares you. You know, somebody tells you they want to kill themselves, your mind doesn't want to agree with that. But to actually give them the space to say, that's, you know, wow, you're right, you're telling me that you want to kill yourself, that's got to be really scary, and hopeless, obviously. Can you tell me a little bit more about where you're coming from? And allow them to actually talk through it, as opposed to us saying, nope, you know, you don't want to do that. That would be really bad. That would be, you know, it would hurt a lot of people, and just start telling them what to do. That tends to just shut them right down, which is where the root hopelessness is anyway, and their loneliness. And so extracting loneliness through empathy is God's gift to anybody. I mean, it's something that, to me, I always see it as a gift. To take someone's loneliness away is one of the greatest gifts you can do.